Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another week's episode of your Vibe Tribe podcast. I have a very special guest. Her name is Maria. I am bringing her on to share her story. She's gone through a lot of amazing life lessons, and I think she is the perfect person to bring on to the show. She is a ball of energy, so I'm so excited to bring her on. Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm honored to be here and to be on your podcast. So I'm very, very excited. And yes, I'm Maria. Hi, everyone.
Before we dive into today's conversation, I wanted to take a moment to just say thank you to anyone that listens and supports this podcast. It really does mean the absolute world to me. Now, if you've been enjoying the content and the advice that we've been giving you, then please take a moment to share this episode and share your Vibe Tribe podcast with your friends, your family, and your network. So hit the share button wherever you are listening to this podcast. Share it to your socials. Don't forget to tag at your Vibe Tribe podcast so that we can personally thank you for sharing. For those of you who haven't already, make sure to hit that follow and subscribe button. That way you are always updated when a new episode launches.
I am here in Orlando, Florida, and I live in a house with my fiance and a big white dog. Her name is Phoebe from Friends, because I'm obsessed with the show Friends. It is my comfort show. It is the best show ever. I've seen it a million times. Yes, so I just got engaged a few months ago, so I'm full on into wedding planning mode. We're getting married next January, so I am just ready for that. But during the day, I work from home. I work for a healthcare recruiting company on the account management side, so I'm an account manager associate, and I help support the account manager team, working with the clients, helping fill their therapy positions. And I'm also a cycle bar instructor, so I teach at Cycle Bar Dr. Philip, so come take a class. I'm there 4 times a week, and that is truly just one of my passions. It fills my cup, seriously. When I feel like I've just had a crazy day or a late night or, tough morning, I get in there and I clip in and I get to just like share my love for fitness and health and wellness and everything. So I love that. Before this, I was a child life specialist for 5 years at a children's hospital, where I helped kids cope through their hospitalization, and a very rewarding job, but definitely a tough one, a mentally taxing one, and that's what I'm kind of here to talk about today too.
Yes. And Maria, just to give everybody who's listening a little background on how we know each other.
Yes.
We both worked at the company that she's working now. And it's so crazy because I think this happens a lot where maybe you'll work with someone, you'll interact with someone, and you'll kind of know them surface level, right? We work together. We kind of had maybe a few interactions together, and then you reached out to me. Maybe you felt aligned to come on the podcast, but then even from the first conversation, I feel I obviously we're talking about something very deep, personal, but I just felt I'm oh my gosh, I wish I had taken the moments and the opportunity to get to know you when we were actually working, because I feel we were going through such a similar experience, and I think that's just a testament to there are sometimes things that people are going through you have no idea about.
No idea. Yep.
And so it's I don't know. I think that's a testament that you should try and get to know people and and make an effort to get to know people, because you never know who's on the other side of that.
Yeah, I think that, and it just helps to, it helps normalize it, knowing you're not the only one that's going through something or has gone through something. In particular, especially when it comes to focusing on you and your mental health and kind of any changes you need to make. Everyone's going through something and something they might need to change. So it's helpful to relate to someone else too.
100%. Okay, awesome. Well, I want everyone on this show to get to know you a little bit more. So you mentioned that you were working as a child life specialist. How did you get into that career?
Yeah. So I was a part of an organization called Dance Marathon when I was in college. We raised money for Children's Miracle Network, and part of the funds go to funding positions for child life specialists. And so I found out about what a child life specialist was. I had no idea what it was. And a lot of people, when I told them I was a child life specialist, no one really knows what a child life specialist is. But I found out and immediately fell in love because I knew I wanted to be in the healthcare space. But I wasn't too sure about like being the doctor or the nurse or kind of doing the things to the patients. But I knew I wanted to help in some capacity. So once I found out about child life specialists, I found out that they're the ones that help kids cope through their hospitalization and families. So whether that means providing education, procedural support, kind of the three pillars are procedural support, education, and play. So education on like a child's developmental level, um, and then procedural support to help them cope through the hospitalization, and that can be in many different forms. I could probably
Mm-hmm.
talk for an hour about like child life in general, but and then also like play. So that could be normalization play, therapeutic play, medical play, just anything to help these kids and families get through this really difficult time. And then there's other roles and hats that child life specialists have. They help provide support to siblings who may have siblings in the NICU. We do bereavement support. We help with events. We help with volunteers. So a lot of different hats, and it quickly became my passion. It quickly became my purpose. I was excited. A huge thing to become a child life specialist is to get a 600-hour internship under a child life specialist with a child life
Okay.
program. And some of the guidelines to become and steps to become a child life specialist have kind of changed since I become one. But during my time, an internship was needed, so I did a practicum, and then I started applying to internships. And my senior year, I didn't get one. Coming out of college, I didn't get an internship first time around. So my only choices were to kind of wait or to apply to a
Mm-hmm.
child life master's program. And so I applied to a master's program completely online. And it was probably one of the best things to ever happen to me because I think I grew so much through that master's program. I was able to learn so much, and it helped me become the child life specialist I became. And then through that program, we had to again go for an internship.
Mm-hmm.
So I applied for internships. They're very difficult to get. And I didn't get an internship again. So that was kind of like a little bit of a barrier, of course, and just
Mm-hmm.
tough on my mental state. But I knew it was my passion, so I had to keep going. And a leader in my program, a master's
Yeah.
program, reached out and she said, there are some internships still available. Things just like haven't worked out with them finding someone yet. The only thing is they're in New York, and I'm a Florida girl. I never lived outside of
Yeah.
Florida, and I only really applied in Florida. Like I applied a few other states, but still pretty close, like not as far as New York.
Yeah. That
And I was
literally
like,
like
okay,
opposite.
yeah. And so I was like, okay, I will of course go for it because again, I had to do what I had to do. Got
Mm-hmm.
an internship in New York, so I moved to New York for 4 months, which again I think was also just one of the best things that's ever happened to me because it got me out of my comfort zone. It definitely pushed me, it challenged me, and it kind of made becoming a child life specialist like that much more worth it. Because I was like, I just got through
Yeah.
that, like I can tackle anything. So once I got through those 4 months, I said, just give me back to Florida. I will go anywhere in Florida, but just get back
Yeah.
to Florida.
Get me back.
And I was lucky enough to get an internship right where I'm from, or sorry, internship, job right where I'm from in Orlando.
Okay.
And my family's here. I have friends here. I was pumped. My sister was born at this hospital. Just such a great opportunity. So I started off strong, as we all do in our jobs, right? The first time usually.
Always while you're
And
adjusting.
yeah, yeah, as it's still like new and magical and
Yeah.
adjusting, yeah. Um, but then about 3 years in is when COVID hit,
Mm-hmm.
and Taylor's oldest time with a lot of the healthcare field. I mean, it's still going on to this day, but it was tough. There was a lot of staff cuts, and then there was also before there was even cuts, there was staff that were sent home for the time being, and
Okay.
I was one of the staff members that got to stay, which I was so thankful for. But it went to over like 10 of us covering the whole hospital to only like 5 of us. So that was
Wow.
pretty taxing. And I was covering 2 floors. And again, I was just so thankful to be using my passion still, to still have a job, to still be helping and doing what I could.
Mm-hmm.
But there'd be days that I was covering up to 40-ish patients. And the expectation was not to see every patient, right? But as a child life specialist, that was my job, to help as many kids as I could.
Right.
And I wanted to be there for them. But as another year went by, it was really tough because we just weren't able to get back the staff that we needed. Um, and there wasn't other things that could help other than like staff. So what I mean by that is like, extra support or, extra compensation or anything. And at the end of the day, like I know that, those things like they went above my pay grade, right? Like they're
Right.
just, I still love where I worked. Like I don't have any sort of bad feelings towards them. It just weighed a lot on me and a lot of others at the hospital too. But it weighed a lot on me, and I kind of started to not want to do my job, which was really, really hard. And I didn't really realize it at first
Yeah.
until I just would wake up and I like wouldn't want to go to work. And I was just kind of like going through the steps. And then it really started to hit me when people, not only at work that I was close with, because, I worked there for almost 5 years,
Right.
but also outside of work, were like, you're not okay. Like you're not you, and something has got to change. But I didn't know what. Like child life was my identity. It was my purpose.
Right.
I'd worked so hard. I had gone through so many obstacles to get there. I was like, I can't change. What do you mean? I can't like just all of a sudden jump ship.
Right.
But as time went on, I just realized I really, truly was not okay. It took a lot of um, internal work and reflection and also acceptance, which I think is really huge when you're going through like a mental health struggle like this. And I'm such an advocate for mental health. I mean, I know so many people who have gone through such huge battles, and I
Right.
had been lucky enough that I hadn't really gone through anything super serious. But in this time and moment, I was like, wow, like, no, I definitely need to do something, or else this is just going to get worse. Like, nothing was going to change.
Right.
Like, it was just going to keep getting worse for me. And
Yeah.
I couldn't show up for myself. I couldn't show up for my friends and family. I couldn't show up for the kids at the hospital. Like it wasn't fair to like anyone involved. So I started just kind of exploring what else is out there. But again, like I think that's a hard thing too. And I know a lot of former child life specialists, wherever they may be now, kind of struggle with this because we have such like a niche degree and
Right.
specialty that it's hard to, it's not like just like, oh, I have a business or finance degree, I can go like find anything. I mean, it's very niche. So
Hmm.
it's kind of putting yourself out there in a world that like really wants like people with experience and people with the background. And
Right.
I encountered some rejection, and that was tough. And I interviewed for the first time in like 5 years. Like I hadn't done that in a long time, so that was scary. But then the current job kind of fell into my lap. Someone I know worked for this company, and she was like, they're hiring, like might as well give it a shot.
Yeah.
And it was scary because I was originally interviewing to become a recruiter, and I was like, I've never done this before. I've
Done.
never even thought about doing this.
Yeah.
And I commend people who do it because I'm just like, it's wild. But I was like, I just need to go for it. And so I did the interview and finally got the position, not as a recruiter, of course, but as an account manager associate. And
Yeah.
it was definitely a bittersweet kind of feeling. Like it felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders, but at the same time, like I was like leaving a piece of me behind, a piece of
Yeah.
my heart of me behind at the hospital. And when I had to go put in my 2 weeks, that was super emotional. And I will have to say that before I even put in my 2 weeks, like I was sharing with my team, with my management, like, and I encourage anyone who's going through this to share with your management. I wish I would have done it sooner. But to share
Yeah.
with them, like I would be crying in her office saying, I'm not okay. I
Yeah.
don't
I'm
really know
having a
what to
hard
do.
time.
Yeah, and like, but at the end of the day, like sometimes they really can only do so much, and they can support, but like maybe they can't make all the changes that you need, and like that's okay. It's
Hmm.
nothing on them, but sometimes you just have to make that change to yourself. So of course, when I made that decision and I put in my 2 weeks, oh my gosh, that was an emotional day for sure.
Yeah.
But I got home and I just remember like looking at Matt, and I was just like, I feel like I can like breathe.
Yep.
And then my last day was, of course, very emotional. But just reminding myself of like the impact that like I had made as a child life specialist,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that I could go back to it one day or go back to it in a capacity
Yeah,
or
when
do
you were
anything.
ready.
Yeah, exactly. But it was just time. It was time to go. Like a song that really spoke to me during that time I think it's literally called "It's Time to Go" by Taylor Swift. For all my Swiftie fans out there,
Oh.
and I heard it and I was like, oh my god, this is me. Because
Yeah,
sometimes whether it's a toxic relationship, toxic work environment, unhealthy feeling at work or whatever it might be, like sometimes it's just
right.
like the stronger thing to do is like walk away as
Yeah,
hard as it might be. And that's a tough pill to swallow sometimes, but
yeah.
I did it. And this past year and few months that I did it, it's been scary. Like, of course,
Mm-hmm.
change is scary. It's scary, but
100%.
I did it, and I was really proud of myself. And I got my mental health back. I focused on me. I had so much more time for myself, for others. I had so much more like space, like mental space and capacity to give myself to others and my time to others. I was able to become a cycle bar instructor. Like, there's no way the
You could
state
have
I was
done
in, I
that.
would have been able to become a cycle bar instructor. I got to like dabble in some other passions, like spend more time, like quality time with my fiance, with my dog, with
Yeah,
my friends and family.
we love that.
So I'm very thankful. Like looking back, I definitely wouldn't change a thing, but it is crazy to look back
Yeah.
and think about like how scary it was in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't know like what my future holds, but in a way that kind of excites me because I've always been like,
Yeah.
I need to know exactly what happens. But right
Yep.
now, like I'm just like focusing on like me and like what's gonna, you know, bring me that happiness and peace.
Yeah.
So that was a
100%.
lot, but I just get very passionate about it.
No, I love that. And I have so many questions for you because
Okay.
so like you mentioned something. Well, first of all, I'm curious, like I've never experienced this. So how does it feel to like spend so much of your life, like your earlier life, working towards a goal that all of a sudden one day you decide to walk away from? Like, can
Yeah.
you go into that feeling of like how you felt? And I know obviously you looked on the other side of that, but like what was that feeling like,
Yeah.
like to work towards something that you're like, this is my goal, this is my goal, especially something that's not like, you even said it's not a traditional path. It is kind of like
Yeah.
hard to get there unless you have like a mentor kind of guiding you because it's a
Mhm.
tough career. So how did
Yeah,
that
for sure.
feel?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely terrifying. I definitely had a lot of like, I overthink. That's to a fault. I overthink. I second guess everything. Just the quality of me. But so I definitely had some. I was definitely second guessing at times. I was like, am I being too like hasty about this? Am I making the
Hmm.
decision too quickly? Like, have I sat with this enough yet? But again, just like acknowledging. I think that was a big thing. Just like acknowledging and reflecting and recognizing like where my mental state was, like, and just
Hmm.
knowing I needed to make that change, started to kind of like take more power than like me like feeling guilty about leaving child life, because that's what it was too. Like I definitely felt guilty of leaving this like incredible field. Like child life
Right.
is like literally, if anyone has a child and goes to the hospital, ask for a child life specialist. Like
Yeah.
I will advocate for them all day. But um yeah, so it kind of just like that took over me, the terrifying feeling of me feeling guilty. I
Yeah.
think also trying to release expectations of like myself, and
Yes.
expectations that others had on that I felt others had on me,
You
especially.
created those. Yeah.
Oh yes, I create narratives in my head, another fun quality I have. But
I think most women, I think a lot of women do that. We create
yeah.
these like expectations that
Yep.
are probably there to some degree,
Yep.
but some of them it's like we're always like expected to be like exceptional at everything that we do, to be recognized for what we do. And so it's hard to
Yes.
not like set those expectations on ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm such like a rule follower and like plan
Oh
things
my
out. I
God,
love
same.
planning. Yeah. So like for me to be like, no, I'm just gonna leave this what I've like worked so hard towards. And I
Yeah.
think it was also like expectations that I thought others had on me,
Hmm.
such as like, my parents, who thank goodness they were like so supportive, but I know
Mm.
at first it was hard for them to understand. Because I think what they've gone through, they like our parents, like maybe not every parent, but I'm just speaking from my parents, like they work their life towards a career and you stick with
Hmm.
that career and you retire and like
Yeah.
that's it. But like as generations have gone on, especially I feel like ours, and again, not speaking for everyone, but I feel like we're more so in on the path of we can change and it's okay to change and it's actually like encouraged to change.
Yep.
So once I kind of realized like okay, like my parent once I started explaining to my parents like what I was really going to and feeling on a day-to-day basis, they were like, okay, well yeah, like I don't want you to like feel that way every day. So you need to do what's going to
Right.
make you happy. And I remember even like a friend, like I was kind of emotional to her about like, well, I don't know, I might be doing this, but and I was like trying to
Yeah.
like explain myself, almost like defend myself leaving child life. And I remember her being like, Maria, I don't really care what you do. Like I do,
I'm
like
happy
I'm
for
interested
you.
in you, but like all I care about is that you're happy. So
100%.
that's all I'm gonna ask you. And if you're not happy in this job, then that's it. Like I'm not gonna sit there and like judge what you do. And at the end of the day, like I just really had to like like keep telling myself that in my head and release those expectations on
Hmm.
myself and um kind of erase the narrative that I was creating in my head too. So
100%.
yeah, definitely tough, easier said than done, but I think with time and support and just like a lot of reflection it helps.
100%. Yeah. And to comment on that, I think it just depends on what you value, right? Like
Yeah.
some people value having a career that they've worked for years and years and years, and they maybe are okay with being like a workaholic and like that consuming their life. But if that's not what
Yeah.
you value, if you value having maybe, if you value your mental health, right? And the
Yeah.
ability that that gives you to be a better partner, a better mother, a better
Mhm.
friend, then that takes
Yeah.
value over the other. It doesn't mean one's better or one's more valuable or not. It's
No.
just what is valuable to you,
Yeah.
and what lets you live a
Yeah.
happy life.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of it too, like going back to like the expectations that I felt like others had on me.
Mm.
And I mean, some people didn't understand. Like some family members, some people just were like, well, "What do you mean? Like, why are you like you're fine? Not like you're fine, but it's just like the mental health part of it. Not
Yeah.
everyone understands, which is okay. And so at the end of the day, I just had to also like remember that I was like doing it for me and like no
Hmm.
one else, and like no one
Hmm.
else had to really fully understand it. Like I just had to like be okay with it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'd always like been such a huge advocate for mental health, but my own mental health, I was always like, oh yeah, I'm good, I'm so good, and then all of a sudden like wasn't good. So I was like,
Until you
okay, this
weren't
is
good.
yeah. I mean that's usually how it happens, right? So I feel
100%.
like just like sometimes you do have to like focus on that mental health before anything else, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
100%. And if anyone's listening to this and like, listen, I was that girl who was like, for a long time, I was like, I just don't get it. Like, I don't get how people can just crumble. Like, you need to be stronger. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how people don't just like get over it, because for so long I was like, life is hard. It just is hard. And you're just supposed to like
Everyone
take it,
struggles. Yeah.
get over it. Everyone struggles. Like, this is not a pity party. But like,
Yeah.
when I went through it and I felt like, okay, I am mentally not like
Yeah.
okay. And for the first time, I realized what that was. Oh my gosh, I was like, I wish I could like go back and like, be more, give people more grace, because I think
Yeah.
when you're in that state of mind, it is really dark. It is very
Yeah.
dark, and it is really hard. And I think people who do struggle with their mental health or are maybe going through a low episode of their life, they should be given more grace, because it is
Oh,
extremely
absolutely.
tough, and you will not understand until you've
No.
gone through it yourself.
Yeah. And it's just, it weighs on you a lot. And it's almost like sometimes you don't know how to get out of it.
Hmm.
And then sometimes you do know how to get out of it, but it's like really scary to make that change, right? Because, or do that
Yeah.
step because like I knew I wasn't okay. I mean, I'd come home, I was crying. I remember even one time I was just like, bawling like and it wasn't like I had like and I mean as a child specialist like you sometimes have very emotional days you are dealing with like you know cases that are just really tough sometimes and can be
Yeah.
mentally and emotionally taxing But I remember it wasn't even like that tough of a day. And I just came home and Matt was like, how was work? And I just like started bawling. And I was like, I just don't want to, I can't do this anymore. I can't show up for me, for these kids, for anyone. And I remember him
Yeah.
looking at me and he was like, go in and quit tomorrow. And I was like, what? And he was
You're like,
like,
how?
yeah, I was like, I can't do that. I have to have a plan first. But he was like, if that's what's gonna like bring back your happiness and peace, like it's worth more. Like your happiness and your peace is worth more than like staying at this job kind of thing. So that kind of was like a
And
reality check
proving
too, to be
what?
like,
Like, what are
yeah,
you
yeah,
proving by staying there? And who are you
exactly,
proving it
yeah.
to?
Yeah, so it's like I knew what I needed to do, and I mean, people were telling me what I needed to do, but it's just like you have to like physically take that step. And I will have to say, like, I did have like so much support, not only from like people at work, but like my family and friends. So if anyone like is going through this, like, I just encourage you to like lean on whoever you have because it is a really tough thing, and like no one should have to like go through it alone for sure.
100%. I think that's a lesson that I've had to learn like the hard way because I've always been very not solitary because I've always had like my family. I'm close to my family, like my partner, like a friend. Like I'm not like the person that has like 20 friends. I'm very like I have like
Mm-hmm.
very deep connections with the friends that I have. But
Mm-hmm.
I've had to learn that the hard way that it's like you're not supposed to handle life on your own. Like we're
Yeah.
human beings, like we thrive on having a network and having like companionship and like it's part of our nature. And so
Yeah.
it's like we need to lean on other people. Like you shouldn't be
Yeah.
expected to do everything on your own. And I think as like women,
Yeah.
we like just pile it on. We're like, we're
Yeah.
supposed to be our like the heroes of this story. And it's like you can be the hero and still ask for help.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that, and I've had to get better about asking for help too, and especially during that time when I wasn't okay. I was like, okay, someone help me out here. Like anyone
Yeah,
anyone
please.
got anything for me? So, yeah.
Please.
So, no, I'm thankful. And I like I said, I wouldn't change a thing. Like I am thankful that I went through that experience because it definitely opened
Yeah.
my eyes. Like I've grown a lot from that. I've had different perspective on things and how to handle things, and been able to like focus more on like my mental health, emotional health, physical health. I mean, it was all just like downhill at that moment. So getting it back up and working on it, and it's a daily thing. Like it doesn't just like I'm not all of a sudden just like okay, everything's
Right.
better now. Like of course I still have tough days, and as does everyone. So I think it's
100%.
continuously like working on you and like reflecting on like what you want your future to look like and what you want your life
Mm-hmm.
to look like in the moment too. um and like I journal every day, so I know that's not for everyone, but like that's been like I
Oh
journaled
my
when I
God,
was
I've
going through
tried.
that tough time. Yeah.
I
It's
love
listen
that.
it's I go through waves. Like I'll do it for a while and then like I'll need a
Yeah.
break. And like that's okay. And the thing is I again comes back to those expectations. I put so many expectations on it. I'm like, it has to be this long and I need to
Yeah.
write like on this many pages. But I again trying to release those expectations because it
Yeah.
does help kind of just like getting those thoughts out on paper, or like I
100%.
use what's called like the 5 minute journal. So literally you just like it's you can buy it on like Amazon and you just like write like
I used it. It's really, really good.
yeah, it's really cool. You just write like your affirmations and gratitudes and everything. But just like I know this sounds so cliche, but seriously, like when I was going through that tough time, I was like, okay, well, what can I do to like almost like escape a little bit and just like not completely go downhill? So I would
Mm-hmm.
journal and then I would read, which I'm like I've been reading a
Yep.
little bit more now, but I haven't always been like a big reader. But I read like a book during that time that just like again helped me so much, just kind of like you know, escape a little bit, take my
Perspective.
mind off. And yeah, yeah. So just finding something because it can be a very, very tough time for sure.
100%. I wanted to ask you because I think this is something that I've personally struggled with that when you're forced to kind of pivot and like, decide like, okay, like I'm ready for a change. I really went through this moment where it was like, well, what else am I going to do? Like, I'm like, I can't do anything else. Like, who's going to even like hire me or like take a chance on me when
Yeah.
I don't know anything. Like I literally, like I was in that
Yeah.
mindset where I was like, I know nothing. And I remember
Yep.
having this like breakdown with my boyfriend one time. Like, I know nothing. Like, who's going to hire me? Like, where am I going to go?
Yeah.
And he's like, are you
Yeah.
kidding me? Like, you're such a hard worker. Like anybody would like be so lucky to hire you. And I was like,
Yeah.
are you sure? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. So like, did you deal with that like imposter syndrome or that like, I guess
Yes.
it is an insecurity, but
Yeah, no,
you
it
know,
is. Yeah, because like going back to like what I mentioned before, like I mean, child life is a very niche specialty, niche degree, and and you start to like look for jobs, and then you see like, oh, you have to have this experience, you have to have these qualifications, and so that's like very nerve wracking if you're going to go for a
mm-hmm,
job and you don't have any of that. And I think it took like a few people telling me like just give me the advice that
mm-hmm,
nowadays especially like companies are hiring like good people, hard workers, like people who are going to
100%.
be reliable. So I kind of had to like get that in my head that like
Yeah.
like yeah, like get that in my head that they're focusing on that and not like if I have a degree in something or like experience in
Right.
something. And then when I interviewed, because I did a few different before I got this job, and when I interviewed, a lot of yeah, I was the interviewers.
Yeah.
A lot of interviewers
Interviews.
were like, okay, like you're exact, like kind of like going off your question. They're like, okay, you've done this for 5 years. You went to school for it. You've done a lot of work with it. Why are you leaving it? And like, honestly, it was a good question. It was like,
Right.
honestly a good question.
Good
And I kind of
question.
was, yeah, good question interview. And I was almost like prepared for it because I was like, they're going to ask me like why I'm like
100%.
totally shifting gears. And I think when I had to respond to that, I was super honest. I was like, it's been an amazing journey and career for me, but I'm ready for another challenge. I'm ready for that next step. I'm ready to see what else is out there. And I'm ready to like use all the skills and qualifications and experience and education I have and put that
Mm-hmm.
towards something else. And
Mm-hmm.
luckily, like people were receptive to that. And I think after like an interview or two that people were like, okay, yeah, cool. Like that they were like receptive. It like felt easier.
Yeah.
And just like being honest too. I mean, and I even like in some interviews, like I even touched upon like, the burnout and the mental health part of it. And I feel like
Yeah.
people kind of appreciated that transparency to be like, okay, well,
Yeah.
yeah, good for you for taking care of your mental health and shifting gears and making a change. And just
Yeah.
like showing them that I was still like eager and ready to like take on
To
whatever it
learn.
may be. But it was tough like finding what I wanted to do because I also didn't want to just like apply to anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Because you're like, I don't want to leave
I
something like stressful and like just pick something again that's going to be the
yeah.
same situation.
Yeah, exactly. And like I even
Yeah.
remember like sweet Matt like just trying to help. He's like, "What about this? What about this? Well, I found this." And I'm like, that's
I don't
like
want to do
not where
that.
my head's at all. And like, again, like with this job now, not that I ever saw myself doing it, but I was like,
Yeah.
okay, like it's still kind of in the healthcare realm.
Right.
And I definitely the working from home part appealed to me because I was like, okay, well, maybe that'll help kind of with my mental health and everything. And it was funny
Yeah.
because everyone was like, how are you gonna work from home? Like you
Because you're
love
such
to
a
be
butterfly.
around, yeah. Like you love to be around people, you love to talk. Like
Yeah.
how? And I'm like, I don't know, but I just like had this feeling that it was just gonna help. Again, just like help me get my mental health back, help me get like
Yeah.
be able to give more of my time and energy outside of work because I would be at the hospital all day, get home, and then in the evenings and the weekends, I wasn't a good time to be around. Like I didn't want
Right.
to go do anything. But then when I started working from home, I was like, okay, now I'm like craving that time with others and I can give like myself, like my
More.
true self more. So I think that was something that like I was looking forward to. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely really scary because like you said, it is kind of like imposter syndrome. You're like, I can't do anything
100%.
else. No one's going to take me. But then like
100%.
where we both like we got another job. So
No, I can 100% relate to that. And it's
yeah.
like, I feel like when you're going through a hard time, you're always like, you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? Because you're just worried
Yeah.
about all of the problems that are happening right now. You're like, it's just like too hard. It's like your brain's already trying to process the change that's happening. And so it's like,
Yeah.
you're just adding all of these worries and concerns, and like, you're adding all of these scenarios, like, who's going to hire me? And like, well, what if I can't find a job for this amount of time? And it's like another thing and another thing. And it's like, you got to just tackle one thing at a time. Like, it's impossible to look at that far ahead. Like, just focus on the right now and like what you can do right now.
Exactly. And it's like going back to like creating those narratives in your head, because we can't predict the future. Wish we could. That'd be great.
I know.
But we can't. And so we don't know. It's like, and in that moment too, especially when like I accepted the job and knew I was gonna have to like put in my 2 weeks and everything. But even before then, even when applying for jobs, I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna be okay. I don't know if this can be better. Yeah. But I just know I have to like change something. I can't stay here. Yeah. Like I can't stay here. And I'm lucky enough that it did get better, and I did get better, you know what I mean? And it did help. But you know, that was a scary thought too, of like, well, what if I make this change and it's not the job? It's like me, something else, like, you know? So, but playing that what if game obviously isn't going to help. And I think I was about to say too, you know, then once you eventually like, whether it's getting another job or making that change and it does work out, like, I just hope to like anyone that's listening to this, that's kind of like an encouragement and a motivation to be like, okay, it can work out. And it does. It really does. Like, I feel like sometimes I say things that sound so cliche, but I truly mean them. Like, because it's like, you know, everyone's like, what if it doesn't work out? But like, what if it does? And then it's like the best thing that ever happened. But all you had to do was just like take that next step, and it could be a scary big step, but you won't know unless you try. And that's kind of what I kept telling myself. I'm like, I'm not gonna know unless I just like try. I just gotta try. And it doesn't, and reminding myself that, because again, coming from that mindset of like, I had this passion, I had this job for 5 years, but like reminding myself that like not everything has to be like permanent. Like before starting this new job, I remember telling myself, I'm like, I'm gonna try it. And like obviously I've stayed and I'm, you know, doing well, but I told myself, I'm like, okay, like let's not put pressure on this, because I put pressure on a lot of things in my life, but I'm like, let's not put pressure on this. Like if I'm, you know, not okay, you know, whenever, like it's okay to make a change again. We'll like no one's gonna judge me. Yeah, we'll pivot again. And sometimes that's what it's all about. So, but you just have to like sometimes just take that leap, take that step.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, listen, that's been like a reoccurring theme for me. And I think women in general, we put so much pressure on ourselves, whether it's like how we look, whether if it's like, you know, are we good enough? I think like that's just always like, we're always questioning, are we good enough? Are we good enough? And like, you know, we're always like, I go back to that, trying to be an exceptional just to be on a level playing field with everybody else. And I think like, and I'm not saying it's like a crack the code situation, because I do agree. It's like it's a constant challenge, and every day you have to wake up with the intention of like trying to change and like try to reframe and like rework that, the way that we think, and like giving yourself like just more grace. Like I feel like a lot of women were so forgiving of everyone else, but like it's so hard to forgive ourselves. So it's like we need to be kinder and like give ourselves more grace.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are way too hard on ourselves. At least I know I am way too hard on myself, put way too much pressure. And then it's like, at what cost? Like it only ends up like affecting me, you know? And I just think like it's so important to like, you know, put your needs first. And, you know, I also don't want to, what's the word, like devalidate? Is that a word? You know, like the opposite of validate. I don't want to like devalidate like anyone going through like serious mental health struggles, that maybe it isn't just as simple as like
a job,
just taking the next step, or a job, or like, you know, just have a different perspective. Like it took me a little bit to like get there, and I got out of it, but I know sometimes like it is really hard for people to like just wake up and like, you know, choose to make a change or choose to like find that happiness. So I don't want to like devalidate in any way. I just want to like I just wanted to like share my journey with it, and I know we like have similar like journeys and like ways of thinking, which I love, but yeah, I was hoping for us to just like share it so that anyone else who just feels like it's a matter of like feeling stuck too. And
Yeah.
like sometimes when you feel stuck, no matter what it might be, like there's so many situations you can feel stuck on. I'm sure we
Right.
could have a whole nother podcast episode about feeling stuck in a relationship, in a job, in a
100%.
family situation, like whatever it might be. But when you feel stuck, like you have to just like reach out a hand sometimes and just like grasp at whatever you can reach, and just try. And again, I know it's easier said than done, but like it is possible
Yeah.
to get unstuck, and like you're only gonna stay stuck if you like stop and if you don't keep
Right.
going.
If you don't
So
keep trying.
yeah, yeah,
100%. I
exactly.
love that. Well, and I know this might be hard to like sum up, but if you could give advice, if you could give advice to someone that is in like a dark space or does feel really, really stuck, like what is like, I always say that I have like my tool bag of things that I
Yeah.
do like when I'm going through a really, really hard time, or I'm just like upset. Like what's in your tool bag, and like your daily, your weekly, your monthly tool bag that you pull at like when you need to get yourself out of like a tough mindset or
Yeah.
tough situation.
Yeah, no, I love that question. And I think something I've been realizing recently, I mean, I've always kind of thought about this even when I was going through the really tough time, is thinking about like what I can control. So obviously, especially during that tough time, like I couldn't control like um how things like the lack of staff kind of thing, or like
Hmm.
me having to cover so many patients, or me having to go to work every day. Like I couldn't necessarily control
Yeah.
that, but it's like what can you control? So it was like coming home and choosing something that was gonna just bring me some sense of like peace and relaxation. Again, might sound cheesy, but like literally just like thinking of something that it can be literally one thing and you could spend 5 minutes doing it. You know what I
And
mean?
it'll change your
But just
day.
that little, yeah, it's like almost like a trigger in your brain to be like, okay, I'm doing this right now for me. I can control this, and it's bringing me happiness and peace. And just like
Love
finding
that.
that time for you, or even, I was like working out a lot, which I guess that kind of had like an opposite effect because I was like putting like more stress on my body. But that definitely just allowed me to have some like find an escape and like a passion, use a passion of mine.
Yeah.
So find a passion, like find something else other than like what you feel stuck in to use and to help you then get unstuck, because
Yeah.
it's in those moments with yourself, I feel like. And I felt like it was within those moments with myself where I was either like reading or working
Yeah.
out or journaling or whatever it might be, where I was like reflecting without me even realizing it. Like looking back, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, I was processing. I was like really thinking about like what I wanted my future to look like. Um, and at the end of the day, like I didn't really know exactly what my future was gonna look like, but I just like I pictured just like happiness and just like a good, like a healthy, like mental state, physical state,
Yeah.
emotional state. Like I just like kept picturing that, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, what's a step that I can take to work towards that? Um, so just reminding yourself of that and taking the time for you. And just I know we even started by saying this, like knowing that like you're not alone. Like there's so many, like I mean, it's crazy. Like
So
not just you and
many.
I, but like so many people, when I told them about like changing careers, they were like, oh yeah, like same, I did that, or I'm about to do that, or I'm doing that too. Like, or like even
Crazy.
when I shared my journey, like I had posted like a video on my last day, and I shared that I was like leaving child life, and that like it's okay. Like it's okay to go and to leave, and sometimes
Mm-hmm.
what you need to do. Like I remember so many people reaching out and being like, oh my gosh, like that just like hit me, because either like they were going through something similar, and sometimes you just need like that little extra push and a little extra like validation, and
Yeah.
kind of taking away the fear of it. So I just like knowing that like so many people are going through this, that it's normal, like it's so normal to want to change careers or get unstuck out of something. Like it's so normal, and you have to do it
100%.
for you, and that has to be your main goal, is focusing on you too.
100%. I love that. Wise words. Now I have some closing questions for you.
Okay.
And this is the part
Okay.
where we get even deeper.
Ooh, okay.
What is a belief that you hold with conviction, and why is it important to you?
Like saying yes to yourself more, um because we say yes to so many other people in our lives, and then we'll say no to ourselves. And like, whether it's like we say yes to go do something, that is in a sense saying no to yourself, of like having time for you kind of thing. So just
Mm-hmm.
saying yes to you more, and whatever that means, like whether that means like in a relationship, that maybe if you feel like, you know you're not in a great relationship or something, like how can you like say yes to yourself, whatever that means, or going through
Mm-hmm.
like a really tough time in a relationship or at work, like how can you say yes to yourself? So I've been
Yeah.
trying to really plant that in
I love
my
that.
well-being recently. And anything that I've had to do, it's like, okay, what in this moment can be saying, can translate into saying yes to myself. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's like a tough conversation about
Yeah.
something that's like making me unhappy, or that's something that didn't make me happy. Maybe it's saying no to a friend or a group of friends to go do something, and then maybe it's leaving a job. And it
Yeah.
is definitely a tough thing to do sometimes, because we're almost like, well, a lot of us are wired to like just say yes to others, and
Yeah.
again put others like before us kind of thing. And I think it's just important to say yes to you and your happiness in your
Love that.
life.
I love that. That's
Okay,
perfect.
good.
That was amazing. You aced it. It wasn't a test, but you aced
Good.
it. If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Mm. Ooh. Um. I mean, after everything I've been through, and just looking back now, I think it's not being scared and not feeling like everything has to be planned out to a T, because
Yeah.
life happens when you least expect it, truly. Um, I mean, even in my own relationship, like now 3 years in engaged, now a totally different job from what I went to school for. Like I would have never imagined those things happening how they did.
Mm-hmm.
So just like telling my younger self, like you said, like everything is going to work out how it's supposed to be, and just trust in that, and try to not place fear in it, but instead like just continue to like focus on like your passion and who you are, and like don't lose yourself, because I did lose myself for a while. And I didn't expect to. Like I never thought that was going to be what happened, but I did. And so just telling my younger self, like, just stay true to you, and into your life, into your happiness, and you'll look back and realize that it all happened how it was supposed to.
Ditto. Like, how do you define success? And do you think you've
Mm.
achieved it?
Ooh. I feel like there's a lot of different versions of success. And if you asked different people, like if you line people up and ask them this question, everyone would have a different answer for sure, because some people would define it by like making a lot of money, some people
Mm-hmm.
define it about like being the top dog at their company. I think for me, and definitely just like looking back at my journey, I think success is finding that work life balance, and that um, a job that you can also, going with that work life balance, like it is a job that you are happy with doing, but then you can still give your time and energy to others and to yourself outside of work as well. Um, and that's definitely like changed over time, because as a child life specialist, there's not too many like rankings. Like you can become like a
Mm-hmm.
manager and stuff like that. But now I just want to like continue to work towards um, maintaining that work life balance. And
Mm-hmm.
I think at the end of the day, if I can maintain that, that's successful to me. And of course, like, I mean, I would love to be able to contribute to like supporting to like Matt and I's life and Phoebe's life, you know, our dog
Mm.
child.
Our
So, you
child.
know, yeah. So, of course, like, you know, but I don't think success is all about the money. But I
Okay.
think success can come in many different forms. And for me, I think it's
Yeah.
reaching that like peak work-life balance.
That balance in life. I love that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
those are wise words.
Yeah.
Then I relate to that too. So, but this isn't
Yeah.
about me. This is about you. Anyways, so last and closing question that I always finish with is, what is a lesson that you've learned from someone else in your life, and who were they, or who
Ooh.
are they?
I mean, part of me like doesn't want to use Max. Like, I don't want to give him that credit. No, I'm just kidding.
It's okay. My boyfriend is the same. I'm like, you've taught me so much.
Yeah, you have. Like, but I'm not gonna tell you. No, I mean, I'm not gonna give you that
I'm
ego
kidding.
boost.
That's like a
No.
good partner, but it's funny. I'm also like, I'm not giving
Yeah,
you credit.
yeah, literally. Because you know, I mean, obviously, I've learned so many lessons in my life from parents, friends, family. Um, but I think what I kind of brushed upon earlier when I was going through the really tough time, like he was like, a job is just a job and it can just be a job. Like even when I was starting this job, you know, it was hard for me because obviously like I had such a passion for child life and I used so many different like skills and everything. And I was like, whoa, this is like totally opposite. And Matt was like, at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like it can just be a job and like finding your happiness and like being happy and being okay and not coming home and crying every day
Yeah.
is like way more important than the job. And he like will still tell me that to this day that like a job can just be a job and like just and I feel like that's a good lesson to share. Kind of ties it back to like what we've talked about with like changing careers.
Yeah.
Because I think when changing careers, like sometimes, especially if it's something you've worked your whole life at, well, whole life is dramatic, but you know what I mean. Like worked a
In your
long
early
time
life.
at,
Yeah.
yeah, like worked a long time at. It's hard to make that change because you're just like, no, like I need to do this for longer. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like it can just be a job, and that's okay. Like
100%.
that's okay. Like it doesn't have to be something that you're, you know, consumes you, like you said earlier. It can be if you want, but I think at the end of the day, like if you need it to just be a job, um it can be. And like Matt's really good at not to speak for him, but I feel like he's good at that. Like with his own
Mm-hmm.
job, he goes through so many stresses and tough days, but he's really
Yeah.
good at like separating the two. And at the end of the day, I feel like he's always, wow, I'm really like blowing up his head now, but he's always like very like thankful to be able to just like come home and relax and like spend time with Phoebe and I and kind of like say like, you know, it was a tough day, but it's just a job and tomorrow
Mm-hmm.
could be a better day kind of thing. So I'm trying to be better about that
100%.
because he's really taught me that and supported me
Yeah.
on that, especially during this career change. So
Season. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank
And like,
you.
I know that there's going to be a lot of women listening to this that are going to relate to your story, because I think it happens to a lot of people, you know, like we have to
Yeah.
change and pivot. And yeah, I think like this conversation just adds to that. The part of normalizing that change is okay, change happens. People have to pivot all the time, and the
Yeah.
people that pivot are the ones that will continue to thrive, right? Like
Yeah.
we have to always keep changing,
Yes.
keep trying to grow. Like it's just a part of
Yeah.
life. But thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing your
Thank
story. I loved
you.
having you.
Thank you so
Oh,
much. It was so much
also,
fun. Yeah.
hello. So our audience can find you.
Yes.
Where can they find you? And
Yes.
obviously, we're here in Orlando, but if
Yeah.
any of our listeners wants to take one of your classes.
Yes. Yes. So I am mainly on Instagram. I love me some Instagram. My Instagram handle is
Yes.
maria.mandese. So Mandese. So maria.mandese. And yeah, you can find me there. I post a lot. And I teach at Psycho Bar Dr. Phillips here in Orlando, and I teach 4 times a week. So I
Killing
teach
it.
Monday morning, 5:45 a.m. for my early birds, Wednesday, 5:45 a.m., Friday, 6 p.m., and then Saturdays, 9:30 a.m. So please come and visit and try it out. But also, if anyone ever just wants to reach out, like feel free to message me if you want to chat, or I'm sure if you get messages, like let me know. And I would love to just keep talking about this if anyone wants to.
I love that. Thank you. All right,
Thank
guys,
you.
we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.